Right now, I want to take you back to December 15th of 2016. It was on that day that a man named Suleiman Fakiri, 30 years old, died in the Central East Correctional Facility in Lindsay, Ontario. Suleiman had been arrested and taken there, and despite the claims of other inmates, despite the claims of even other correction staff that he was not well enough to be inside of a jail and should have been taken to a hospital, he was not taken to a hospital. And on December 15th, 2016, multiple guards rushed into his cell, attacked Suleiman, beat him, and he died. His family has been asking for answers ever since. And because of some new investigations and some new reporting and some new information that has come to light, the case into the killing of Suleiman Fakiri has been reopened, this time by the Ontario Provincial Police. The family of Suleiman Fakiri have started a network called Justice for Soli. And Suleiman's brother, Yusuf, who's part of that network, joins me in studio this afternoon. Hi, Yusuf.
Hi, Desmond.
First of all, the Fifth Estate on CBC, you approached them after your brother's killing and asked them for help. And they just came out with a documentary with a lot of new findings that your family didn't know about what happened to Suleiman. Before we talk about the actual findings, what were you hoping was going to happen when you approached CBC and asked them to investigate Soli's death?
Same thing we've been asking since December 15, 2016, Desmond. Answers. We want to know what happened to Suleiman on that fateful day. We want to know what happened. We've been asking for the truth for the last more than 2 years. This family deserves that. And people in Ontario deserve that. The people in this country deserve that because this was a vulnerable man. And for the last 2 years, my family and the lawyers have been kept in the dark.
The CBC investigation really did turn up a lot of information. Now, there were some things that we knew about what happened to Suleiman, but for example, we knew that there were at least 50 blunt force trauma wounds to his body, pressure on his neck, ligature wounds on his wrists and ankles suggesting that he was bound. But there is an eyewitness who's come forward on the CBC documentary who says that he saw everything that the guards did to your brother. What was it like for you to hear that man's testimony?
You know, Desmond, I've only heard it once. I can't heard it a second time. It was painful. I mean, it was extremely painful. It's been even more painful for my family. I mean, the last few minutes of my brother's life was horror, violent horror against him. A human being who deserved better and who's vulnerable, yet mercilessly loses his life. I mean, according to this witness, the quote that he said, they viciously beat him to death. It's been horrible.
And yet he was willing now, after being in jail himself and getting out, he was willing, this witness, to come forward and to talk for the first time about what he saw. And his information and other new information that's been given to the Ontario Chief Coroner has led to this investigation being reopened. No one was charged originally in the death of your brother. Do you have hope now that there could be some accountability?
Desmond, it's all right for accountability. It's not just hope. I think it's a critical step that the OPP has reopened the investigation, in the hope that we get justice for Suleiman, and we're very thankful to the Office of the Chief Coroner's Office in finding that. But this is not a question of whether it should or not. Accountability is what my late brother deserved. It's the same thing for Matthew Hines, for Ashley Smith, for Abdurrahman Hassan, and for Edward Snowshoe, for Moses Beaver, for Cass Geddes. This is something that this family not only deserves, but it's our given right.
We're going to talk more about some of those names you mentioned in a minute and some of the other families across Ontario who have also lost loved ones inside of the correctional system. Your group, Justice for Soli, has tried to band together with other families, and I want to touch on that. But first, we know that Suleiman had a diagnosis of schizophrenia during the latter part of his life, and we know that there were other occasions before this one where people called the police on your brother and he was handled in a different way. Can you talk about some of the care that your brother received in hospital when, for example, there were issues in the community and somebody was called? How was he treated differently than what happened when he was taken to jail?
To simplify it, Desmond, he was treated like a human being. He was treated with compassion when he was taken to the hospital. He was treated with decency that he was his given right. Yet in this facility, it's as if he was thrown in a dark hole to never be seen again. My family was never able to see him after he was taken temporarily into custody. We tried to visit him, sir, 4 times. To this day, we were not given those answers.
And it was 11 days that he was incarcerated before he was killed.
Yes, sir.
So you tried 4 times during those 11 days to visit him, and you were denied that opportunity every time.
Yeah, and staff were aware of his illness. I articulated to staff with my younger brother that Suleiman had a mental, in addition to the fact that at that point, it was 11 years when he was diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Let's talk now about some of the other families that you and your family have been connecting with through the Justice for Soli campaign. You mentioned a string of names just now, many that people would know, I imagine, including Ashley Smith, for example. What has it meant to you and to your family to be able to connect with other families whose loved ones have died or been killed while incarcerated?
Well, on a personal note, it continues to give me motivation to speak out against my brother, and that, of what happened to my brother, but also like we share this unfortunate tragedy together, in that these families have been going through this, and we have to work together to truly make sure that Ashley Smith, someone like Matthew Hines' family, or Cass Geddes, or Moses Beaver, or Abdurrahman has family, another family does not bury their loved one. We want to make sure that this has to stop. This is unacceptable in our country. We can't let this happen. My late brother's death could have been prevented, but it happened because there has been no accountability. There has been no transparency. There was multiple recommendations after the Ashley Smith inquest, but the same things that happened to my late brother, certain things, it's an awful parallel, or to Cass Geddes, or to Moses Beaver, or to Justin Saint-Amour. But we together with these families, we want to make sure that this has to stop.
Your other family members also appeared in that documentary, some of yours and Suleiman's other brothers. You have many fond memories of Suleiman, and I know that, I was at the vigil last month when dozens of people showed up for the second year in a row to pay homage to your brother. I just wonder if we could end on that note with you sharing something for our listeners about your late brother.
Suleiman was like everyone else. He had hopes and dreams. He had brilliance. He spoke 3 languages. He was a brilliant uncle, a brilliant brother, yet most importantly, a brilliant son to my mother and father. And his absence leaves a mark that his family will never recover. But our hope is to make sure that we use Suleiman's memory that another family does not go through. But my brother was a human being. He was someone that was loved. His life meant something to many of us. And we want to make sure that we continue to tell his story. His story has to be heard so another family does not bury their loved one.
That's Yusuf Fakiri, the brother of the late Suleiman Fakiri, who was killed in a prison in Lindsay, Ontario on December 15th, 2016. I want to thank you for your courage and for your continued advocacy. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Desmond.
Welcome back to the show. I forgot to mention in the last segment that there's going to be a screening of that CBC investigation into the death of Suleiman Fakiri. The documentary, I should say, is called Deadly Restraint. And the Justice for Soli Network, Yusuf Fakiri, of whom you just heard from, they're going to be screening that at 6:30 at Hart House on Wednesday evening. So you can check out the Justice for Soli campaign and Justice for Soli Network if you want to see more information about that on social media.